Good morning, everyone. It's Sunday, May 5th, and it's time to go on the record. Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, 10 years as the power broker on Beacon Hill. Why issues of transparency are bringing new challenges.
Please know that we made our decision with great care.
The state's gaming commission gives Wynn Resorts the go-ahead in Everett, but is a fine for bad behavior little more than a parking ticket? And have Massachusetts Democrats found a new favorite in the presidential race? That's Mayor Pete, and he's packing him in Somerville. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to OTR on this first Sunday in May. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Wu. It's great to have you with us, and our guest this morning is the Speaker of the Massachusetts House of Representatives, Robert DeLeo. He's a Democrat from Winthrop, became Speaker back in 2009, first elected to the House in '91, represents the 19th Suffolk District. He holds degrees from Northeastern University and Suffolk University. Mr. Speaker, it's always great to have you with us on the record.
Great to be
Thank
here.
Happy Sunday to you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Encore Resorts, used to be known as Wynn Resorts, is getting the license after all, despite corporate attempts to hide numerous sexual misconduct allegations against Steve Wynn. But my question to you is $35 million imposed by the State Gaming Commission enough? Is it really nothing more than a parking ticket?
First of all, I think that obviously the actions by Mr. Wynn were reprehensible, so I don't think there's any question as to that. The second thing I'd like to point out is the fact that we've got 5,000 jobs that are hanging in the balance for Encore. So I had felt that it was necessary that as best as possible that they open on time. It was something which we included in this year's budget, but most importantly that they open on time. We have so many jobs in the balance, and I think that the Gaming Commission, I applaud the Gaming Commission. Obviously, I don't think that they could have just opened on time without any type of other repercussions, and I think that, you know, the amount that they decided, I think, was probably one of the highest fines ever given.
It was more than Nevada fined with the Wynn Resorts, but $35 million, it's almost a drop in a bucket, some people would argue, in light of how much money they will be making just in this first year that they're open.
And again, not to downplay, I should say, what Mr. Wynn had done. But I think for the sake of, I think it was important that that casino open on time, and I think whatever options they had open to them, they decided that was the best option. And
there's also been sort of a microscope on the Gaming Commission itself, and some people feel that they have sort of stumbled a bit in trying to deal with this whole thing. Do you think that's the case, and do you think that perhaps the legislature should look into perhaps more mandates, tightening of regulations as far as the Gaming Commission is concerned?
I think there's always going to be some discussions. I think with that, when the Gaming Commission was formed, it was one of the items that I felt that it should be an independent commission. I wanted to see, and the members agreed that they didn't want to have any so-called political influence. That's why I had stated that in any legislation which was to come out of a committee, that I did not wish that that I would have.
But you've been happy with it. But you've been happy with the way
they've had a tough job. I think they've had some curves thrown their way, so to speak, and
they've handled it well in your mind.
I think in this particular item they did.
All right, let's move on to the budget process. It's item 2 this morning. The process in the past few years under your leadership has involved very little public debate on the floor. Just about all of the major decisions are made behind closed doors. While some might argue that this is more efficient, here's the question for you, Mr. Speaker. Is this in the best interest of the public? Voters want to know how the sausage is made, you know what I mean? So is this in the best interest of the public?
First of all, this is a way that we have done the budget even before I was Speaker, or even before I was Ways and Means. And the thing I point out to people is the following, that if you talk about debate and talk about the members' ability to have input, they have quite a bit of input. In actuality, you get the opportunity, obviously, to see the chair of the Ways and Means or myself in terms of what your priorities may be. Secondly, during the budget process, you also have that ability once again. But I think what some people forget is that any member has the ability, if they are displeased with the answer of the chair of Ways and Means, Representative Michaelowicz, I thought did a great job with the budget. They have that opportunity to so-called pull an amendment and have it up for a roll call roll call vote. And the other things I'd like to point out is that I hope people would also look in terms of the content of the budget. I thought this was a very good, budget. Record amounts of local aid, record amounts of Chapter 70
but
funding.
all those things aside, what about the public debate on the floor? The open right here, right on the table, public debate on the floor.
The only thing I can say is that, again, members have that ability. Should
But
they
they're
wish to
doing it
debate
in the
that?
back
doing
room,
it,
though,
yeah.
instead of on the floor of the House. My memory of covering the legislature for decades is that there used to be hours and hours of public debate on the floor for weeks, not just 3 or 4 days. And the deals that were made out in public, as opposed to in room 354, where the media is not allowed.
Yeah, and I think again that the two important things are the bottom line. We passed the balanced budget. We put money into the rainy day fund. We're now in excess of $2.5 billion, which I think is important for the economy, especially our bond rating. Again, what we did for local aid, what we did for school funding, what we did for, the most physically and mentally disabled here in the Commonwealth. I think that's the way you should judge a budget, and I think it was a good one.
Do you support raising taxes for transportation fixes?
Oh, that is one of the major questions that we're talking about right now. I've already had discussions with the folks from A Better City, with Chris Dempsey from Transportation for Massachusetts. I reached out to both the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce and the Springfield Chamber of Commerce, because I stated to them I wanted to hear your ideas. What type of idea? I think we have to work together here.
So
What
you're
can you
open
do?
But do you support it?
Right.
Do you support it?
Right now, I think everything and anything is on the table in terms of what will happen relative to transportation. Obviously, I think the transportation needs of the Commonwealth, it's not just the Greater Boston area as well. When I travel out to Springfield or further west, they talk about the needs for RTA and financing and whatnot, so that I think it's such an important part of our economy that we have to have a real serious discussion.
Before we go to the OTR pop quiz, which I know is your favorite part of the show, I want to ask you a little bit about campaign war chests. You've been the speaker now for a decade. You've got $700,000 socked away in your campaign war chest. It makes it pretty hard for anyone to run against you. There is a move right now to limit how much legislators can keep in those accounts. Is that a good idea? Would you support that?
I don't think so. I think that, quite frankly, I think we have very, very strict laws relative to campaign financing that become stricter in terms of how much we can accept from certain folks, and the like. And as such, I think that as long as we comply with the rigid laws that we have in Massachusetts, then that should be sufficient.
You ready for the OTR pop quiz?
Well,
We're going to turn now to the man who actually put the pop in pop quiz.
I will tell you this right
Okay, I'm
now.
listening. I'm listening.
Right now. I know you listen, but you never seem to agree with me. And I know Janet's the same way. We've had. I just got out of a very, very, difficult time with the budget and some of the issues that are facing the Commonwealth.
But if you had more public debate, you might be able to.
Right now, I also feel that's a cheap shot.
I know.
There was no need of that. Right now, the Red Sox, the Bruins, and the Celtics in the NFL draft. I have so many things on my mind.
We only have 2 minutes for this.
I have so many things on my mind. So the 2
You
minutes.
can only filibuster for so long.
Okay, all right.
The filibuster is over.
Once again,
All right.
I'm and whatever.
You're perfect. This is this is about Massachusetts House speakers in history. The first Speaker of the House under the Massachusetts Constitution participated with the Sons of Liberty and was an associate of Paul Revere. It is a multiple choice. Was it Caleb Davis, Theodore Sedgwick, or Harrison Gray Otis?
Oh, wow. I'm going to say Otis.
It was Caleb
Sedgwick.
Davis.
Oh, that would have been totally wrong.
He was also
Sedgwick was your second choice.
So, question 2. We just mentioned Harrison Gray Otis in the previous question, so we're gonna move on. And Samuel Allen Otis, the former House Speaker, went on to become the first Secretary of the United States Senate, and in that role, he had the honor of doing one of the following: announcing the election of the first president, organizing the first inaugural ball, holding the Bible at Washington's first inauguration.
I'm going to say C.
See, look at you, 1 for 2.
I got it.
Boom.
By the
Doing
way,
very
And
well.
that was a guess.
I should get half
Bible.
a point for the first one
Why?
because you gave Baker last week a half a point for something that wasn't even close
But he
on
added-
gerrymandering.
No, but he
We're gonna-
added
that was-
information.
We'll work this
He
out. We'll
added
take a break and we'll be
information.
right
I
back.
have 1.5 the way I look at it.